today to open this webinar titled Valuing What Matters in Urban Areas, a dialogue on quality of life with local governments and academia. This is a side event within the civil society, United Nations Civil Society in Nairobi, with physical presence in Nairobi and Buenos Aires. This event has the honor of hosting distinguished personalities from the Buenos Aires city government, from the University of Buenos Aires, and also the resident coordination of the United Nations in Argentina, Claudia Mojica Lara, along with a panel of renewed figures from the global academic sphere that I will be introducing one per one. This event is organized by the Quality of Life Initiative, aims to empower local leaders with the tools necessary to enhance community well-being, together with the University of Buenos Aires, and is presented in this side event that I was referring. All right, so opening, I will be starting introducing some of the panelists, but before a very short reflection on, we are trying collectively to discuss what matters in urban life, in quality of life. And this focus on the city of Buenos Aires is intentionally looking to really contribute at local level what is this global academic discussion, trusting that this discussion really will benefit the people that are living in those cities. This is an initial one, but will be repeated in different cities around the world. Some logistic details that are important to highlight is the use of microphone and camera. By default, the microphone and cameras of attendees are muted. But please feel free to use the chat to ask questions or make comments. We really look forward for those comments, and some of our colleagues here are collecting it and will be used. Translation, especially for those that are from Spanish-speaking countries or even Arabs. You should have seen the option when you join to listen to the original audio or in Spanish, as we are privileged to have a live translation. If you would like to switch the language at any time, you can click the three dots at the top of your screen, which says More, and selection the language and the interpretation to choose the language you wish to hear. In any case, do not hesitate to use the chat to communicate with us, and we have a committed staff to support the different activities on the event. All right, we will start our program today. We have Claudia Mojica Lara, who is attending another important event here in Argentina. So we will skip her remarking for opening the session, and we will give chance to Nora Al-Yusuf, who is the Chief Global Engagement Officer, Quality of Life Program Center in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. A very short CV is Nora Al-Yusuf is a global powerhouse with over 2 decades of diverse experience across finance, nonprofits, sports, and wellness. As the Chief Global Engagement Officer at Vision 2030 Quality of Life Program, Nora spearheads initiatives to put quality of life at the heart of the various global agendas. Her journey is marked by leadership roles in impactful organizations like Al-Nahda Society, dedicated to empowering women, and in just United Arab Emirates, part of the GA Worldwide, a premier youth servicing NGO. Nora's roots trace back to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where her passion for fostering change blossomed. A graduate of the University of California, Santa Barbara, with a blend of business economics and art history, Nora embodies the fashion of intellectual and creativity. Her passion lies at the intersection of sports, culture, and youth empowerment, driving forward a vision of inclusivity and progress worldwide. Nora, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for that very kind and warm welcome. And I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome for all of our participants from around the world and taking the time to be with us today. Quality of life. Somehow it's a term we're all familiar with in some way, shape, or form, but at the same time, it has new meanings in new ways. As I personally reflect over my long journey, and as I heard in the introduction, I was like, wow, I've accomplished a lot. When I hear other people say it, I realize how much time has passed. But when I reflect on my own journey and my own personal understanding of quality of life and how it's evolved, I really appreciate that this is not a static thing. In fact, it's very fluid, it changes, sometimes at one's own doing, sometimes by forces outside of our control. And so I've learned if there's one thing for certain, is that our world is really changing at a crazy pace. From advancements in technology, shifts in social dynamics, pandemics, looming effects of climate change, conflicts in various parts of the world, all are catalysts for this rapid transformation, forcing us in ways to adapt how we live, we work, we interact with one another. All of these changes directly impact our quality of life. Traditional metrics like GDP or the Human Development Index have long been the go-to standard for measuring well-being. And in my humble opinion, that just isn't sufficient anymore, because they offer an incomplete picture of what quality of life truly looks like. I believe everyone around the world might be familiar with this phrase, money doesn't buy happiness, right? It's been around for a very long time. And in recent years, there's been more focus on the well-being and happiness aspects of our daily lives. Yet money, or the financial metric, remains one of the key metrics decision makers around the world continue to look at and to inform decision making. So at its core, I believe, though, that quality of life encompasses universal elements that we can all agree to, whether it's safety, health, housing, education. I don't know anyone in the world who doesn't want these things for themselves, for their families, for their friends, and their loved ones. Yet when we take the time to delve into the different regions and cities and neighborhoods, we really uncover layers of quality of life. And these layers are shaped by local circumstances, priorities, and different aspirations. If I now take a step back to where I sit today, and I have the privilege to be back in my home country, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, I can say with confidence that our government and our leadership recognize these nuances and embarked on a visionary journey, transformational journey, to enhance quality of life for all individuals and families residing in the kingdom. We understand today that to achieve this, one of the ways we're going to achieve this is to expand choices for everyone and to create the conditions for this expansion to occur. Because at the end of the day, we firmly believe that quality of life does boil down to the choices that we make. 7 years into the launch of the Quality of Life program, we took a moment to pause, checked in, wanted to see how are we doing on this national transformation. There were many successes, lots of lessons learned, but inspired by the successes, we felt it was the right time to mobilize the global community to gain fresh perspectives around the concept of quality of life and to understand what do people really value the most in today's crazy world that we live in. And as such, the Quality of Life Initiative was born. And with that, that's really why I'm here today in your presence. The initiative aims to be the place where our interests converge, a place where we can find a common language and at the same time celebrate what makes us unique. It's a true North Star for those who really put people first. And of course, it will address all of the technical aspects that one would expect from this nature of a project, whether it's data challenges, informed policy-making practices, knowledge sharing, capacity building, alignment with our global agendas, such as the SDGs and others. All of that is a given. But what is truly special about this initiative and what really excites me personally is it can be the force that unites us and brings us together. And I feel with all of this rapid transformation that's happening in the world, these moments are rare and special. So with that, I really extend my gratitude to the esteemed panel, the people at UN Habitat in Buenos Aires, everyone in that room. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for supporting this. I'm looking forward to learning from the experts that are here to talk to us today. And with that, I'd like to hand over the floor back to you.
Thank you very much, Nora. Very appreciate your remarks. And with the commitment of the success in Saudi Arabia and this looking forward on quality of life to the global discussion, we will move to the second part of this webinar that is called Setting the Scene, in which we will ask Rafael Viñol, who is the Global Coordinator of Quality of Life Initiative, to give us some remarks on the Quality of Life Initiative from UN Habitat. That is somehow the framework of this event in which we are participating today. Rafael, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Fernando. And good afternoon, good morning, everyone. It is a real pleasure, and I really want to say a privilege and an honor to join such a panel of expert and impressive audience from all over the world. So we really appreciate your interest. Noura already set the scene, I have to say. She really said what's the essence of what we are trying to do, and I will take you into a little bit more into the details of the initiative. What is this global initiative? It's a new initiative implemented by UN Habitat with the support of the Quality of Life Program Center. And I want to thank Noura for her leadership and support in this incredible endeavor. What are we trying to do with this new initiative? I think everybody, and I hope everybody is familiar with UN Habitat. We are the UN program looking at human settlements and urban sustainability. What we are trying to do with the Quality of Life Initiative, and based on the principles that Noura has highlighted, is to try to give more importance to what matters to people. So through measurements to value more what matters to people. Next slide, please. So the initiative started only last year. It's a very new global program. And by valuing what matters, what are we trying to do? We are reconceptualizing and measuring, providing solutions to measure what quality of life means in cities all over the world. We aim through this initiative to provide solutions to bridge the data gap and contribute to the rescue plan of the Secretary General of the United Nations, but also to contribute to the localization of the 2030 agenda and equip local governments to prioritize their action to achieve the SDGs, achieve progress at the local level by taking into consideration what matters to people. As I just mentioned, to help them through different measures, through different ways and innovative ways of looking and using data to focus on what matters to local populations and communities. The way we are leading this project is by applying the principles of innovation across the project in terms of how the project is implemented, how we engage with people, but very obviously by leveraging innovation in data and digital progress as well. Next slide, please. So at the heart of this initiative is the development of a tool to measure quality of life in different contexts. A tool that will be technically robust and used by local and national governments worldwide. To do that, we are basing our action on two pillars. The first pillar is the development of the tool, a tool that will have universal dimensions, but also that will be applicable locally to take into consideration the different contexts and realities across the world. The second pillar, which is as important, is the advocacy and stakeholder engagement on quality of life, because we believe that developing such a tool needs the uptake and buy-in from different and key important stakeholder groups. For this reason, we are engaging with a wide range of stakeholders all around the world from the onset, as I will show you, including with civil society and academia. Next slide, please. Quality of life, there is not one definition for that. Your definition might be different from mine. It's a contextual and variable notion. Throughout this project, what we consider is that quality of life is an individually defined, geographically and culturally variable concept relating to one's value system, level of satisfaction, and overall well-being. Next slide, please. So when we are looking at measurements, we are, as I mentioned at the beginning, what the initiative is aiming to do is to provide a lens on quality of life, to improve existing and bring new measurements in cities. So how are we doing that? We are applying what we've been calling with our team and partners throughout this journey that we are still actually in the middle of, is to apply evaluative lenses. These are not restrictive, but it's just to give an example. We will be looking, Noura mentioned about choices in life, choices in your environment, affordability, accessibility, efficiency, satisfaction, safety, connectedness, what connects people. All of those evaluative lenses on quality of life relate to somehow subjective dimensions of what matters to people. It is a challenge to integrate them and to integrate them together in a way that is applicable all over the world, and particularly in a way that can take into consideration local context. Next slide, please. I want us to pause for a minute. I like to use this picture to illustrate the work we are trying to do on quality of life, the work we are doing, not trying to, but doing. When I present this picture to different people, different audiences, I have very different reactions. Some people tell me it's messy. This is an old street. This is a very disorganized market. Some other people tell me, oh, there's life. There are colors. You sense a feeling of community. And this is what I like to illustrate here, is that everyone lives his or her environment in a different way and has different expectations and different things that make them happy. Next slide, please. So as I like to say here, connectedness, community, sense of belonging are all subjective aspects that a city or a neighborhood can provide in different ways, and that are essential elements of quality of life in cities. Next slide, please. So valuing what matters, this might sound familiar to you because you're probably familiar with valuing what counts. We believe with this initiative that we are contributing to the beyond GDP thinking overall. Sustainability and social cohesion, social connectedness. Like as you say, that what is behind the beyond GDP global movement, I would say, is that to achieve the targets that we have set to address the planetary crisis and the triple planetary crisis and others, a shift in how we measure progress is urgently needed. So this is one of the bases on which this project is being built, this global initiative. Next slide, please. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are strongly aligning, but more than aligning is getting inspired by principles of innovation, whether it's about having a forward-thinking approach and developing this project in this culture, looking at innovation, technological innovations, innovations for data, to not bring additional burden, but bring solutions and different ways of looking at issues in cities and neighborhoods. Bringing some elements of foresight. How do we plan better? How do we plan better by integrating more of people's perceptions and well-being? The use of innovations and ICT technology. And most importantly, looking at behavioral science is building an evidence-based methodology that will include indicators based on revealed preference and well-being, which will help local leaders, local decision makers understand better what works or doesn't work in their communities. Next slide, please. So how are we doing all of that? I wanted to be short today, so I will not take you through everything that's part of this initiative. I hope maybe one of my colleagues can share again in the chat the website. But one very important element, you remember the two pillars I presented at the beginning. The second pillar is really about consultations and stakeholder engagement. And from the very beginning of this initiative last year, one of our first engagements has been with academia. And we are so pleased to have here today in this esteemed group of speakers, supporters of this initiative, academics, including Fernando, who's been with us from the beginning and have agreed to come together as a community of practice, and they are supporting this effort. So I really want to thank them today and for their very incredibly valuable contribution to the thinking behind the work that we are doing. Next slide, please. More than being present in this community of practice, this group has developed a position paper that we are happy to somehow launch in this event today. I hope also that this has been communicated and will be available on our website very soon. This position paper contains recommendations from the academia group to the international community to better position quality of life in local and global policy discussions. There are some 4 important principles at the heart of this position paper. One is to have quality of life guide and prioritize policy responses by bringing and using people-centered measurements. To use proximity and spatial factors that shape quality of life and recognize them in the way policies are being developed at the local level. To enhance and recognize participatory mechanisms that fully engage individuals and communities. And eventually, once this will be fully ready for you at the end of this year, to use and scale up the index that is being developed by UN Habitat and its partners to measure quality of life. Next slide, please. That's where I stop. I thank you so much, and I wish you a very fruitful discussion. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Rafael. We take advantage of the attendance of Claudia Mojica, that is the United Nations Resident Coordinator for Argentina. Let me just read your CV as an introduction for, yeah?
Oh, short.
Yeah, very short. But Claudia Mojica counts with more than 25 years of experience in the 3 pillars for work of the United Nations: peace and security, human rights, and international development. Until her arrival to Buenos Aires, she was representative resident of the United Nations Development Program in Chile, and previously she was director of the Division of the Americas in the Department of Political Bureau and Praise Consolidation of the United Nations in New York. So, Claudia, we appreciate your opening remarks, although we already initiated. So, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Well, thank you, and good morning, everyone. And sorry for this little delay. I was in a different event with the foreign minister talking about the blue talks, the ocean, something that is related to basically everything that we do. So my apologies for this. It is really a great pleasure to join you today. Thank you for everyone who's here present, and greetings to all the colleagues who are connected. I would like to also recognize, I know that accompanying us is the Minister of Human Development and Habitat of the City of Buenos Aires, Ministro Gabriel Raida. Thank you for being with us. Let me also say hello to my colleague, Rafael Viñol. Thank you from ONU Habitat. And the authorities who are accompanying us, I know that we have colleagues from the Quality of Life program in Saudi Arabia, and also a very warm greeting to Professor Margarita Gutman. And thanks everyone for connecting. It was really excellent news for us here in the UN team in Argentina to learn that UN Habitat had chosen Argentina to organize this important dialogue in the context of the UN Civil Society Conference in Nairobi, which is always one of the main convening events for the UN, but especially this year as it's being connected to the Summit of the Future. I also I know that we have people connected from governments, international experts, and technical teams also in Riyadh, and other participants from all over the world. Here in Argentina, one of the reasons we are particularly grateful to be part of this event is our conviction that the events like today's are the ones that will contribute substantially to the global discussions promoted by UN Habitat, and especially UN Habitat's Innovation Pavilion. Thank you very much. And to those that are taking place, as I said, in preparation for the Summit of the Future. We also have great expectations that this event will be a contribution to enhance urban management here in Buenos Aires, the beautiful capital city of a very highly urbanized country. Let me underscore the importance of advancing towards the achievement of the SDG targets 11.1 and 11.3, which aim at ensuring access for all to adequate, safe, and affordable housing and basic services, as well as upgrading slums. These are the commitments that our member states took in 2015. The targets also aim at enhancing inclusive and sustainable urbanization and capacity for participatory, integrated, and sustainable human settlement planning and management. In this context, we value the invitation of UN Habitat to reflect together on how each of us can help defining and measuring the quality of life, and how to value what really matters in urban areas across our planet. Quality of life encompasses universal elements that we can all agree on, such as health, safety, education, agency, and social connections that are essential for our well-being. But at the same time, we know that perceptions of what constitutes a good life can vary widely and are equally important for people. So this is why we are underscoring the importance of making an effort to incorporate also this, we could call it more subjective assessments, into broader measures. We are certain that our discussions today will contribute to deepen this understanding of the challenges that local leaders face in enhancing quality of life, presenting some of the tools that are available to support effective governance. We also hope that the concept of quality of life will find its place within local policy frameworks and also within our broader development discussions. And this brings me back to tie this conversation as we move forward in preparation of the Summit of the Future that our own Secretary General, as you know, is championing personally, but a Summit of the Future that can only bring concrete results if governments are joined by civil societies. As the UN Charter says, the people, are the ones who need to be driving these changes. So thank you very much, and looking forward to listening to the different interventions today. Thank you again to UN Habitat for letting us be part of this event today.
Thank you, Claudia. Just two remarks from Rafael and Nora issue. I think that is a very good news that now local government has a tool to really address the issue of quality of life. And as Nora mentioned, the issue of context, and particularly when we talk about cities that are facing conflicts and different crises, It's very important to really set up that context to understand quality of life. In that context, I will give the welcome to Gabriel Mraida, who is the Minister of Human Development and Habitat, the City of Buenos Aires. Gabriel Mraida served as the Minister of Human Development and Habitat for the City of Government of Buenos Aires. Prior to this, he held a key role as a Director of Crime and Violence Prevention at the National Ministry of Security under President Macri administration. Additionally, he led the Planning and Monitoring Department with the City Ministry of Human Development and Habitat. He was also president of the City Housing Institute and served as a national congressman. He holds a bachelor degree in political science and complete the political leadership program at CIS. He also holds a master's degree in public administration and policy from the University of San Andres, Argentina. Minister Gabriel, welcome. The floor is yours. Minister Gabriel, can you hear us?
Yeah, hello. I apologize for the delay. I just needed permission to activate the camera and the microphone. Thank you very much. And I first of all apologize in advance for my poor English. So feel free to interrupt me if anything is like confusing, or if there's any question or something that you want to add or correct. For us, it's a pleasure that you have chosen Argentina to make like this conversation. Besides what we can share from the city of Buenos Aires, it's very useful for us and actually interesting to learn and to pick up some tools you are already sharing, and we hope to still receive all of your knowledge and your experience in order to improve our tools, our view of certain issues. As you already said, context is a very important variable in order to analyze human development and every social policy. But this kind of meetings allow us to gain some perspective and, of course, experiences and tools. So we are very pleased to make this exchange with all of you. Like, first of all, we have like two considerations, and then I wanted to share what are the main aspects of our public policy and what we are planning in the city of Buenos Aires. First of all, we are in our fifth month of government. We began this term on last December, so we are still in like a mixture of planning certain things, beginning some programs, and continuing some others that were like still going from the previous administration. So this conversation is particularly relevant in order to set our future policies. So the first thing is like we are beginning the government. So some things that I will be sharing the next couple of minutes are still planning ideas. We are not they're not already like ongoing, and we are we will be it will be useful to hear about your ideas and what you think about. The second consideration is that we are in a very particular moment in Argentina. We've been like in a permanent social and economic crisis for the last couple of decades, I guess. But in the last year and a half, that became particularly deep. We are like with some social indicators that are very serious for us, with inflation rates that are still too high. So every public policy makes us, on one hand, look backwards and try to not to make the same mistakes we have been making for the last years. And the variable of emergency in this context is particularly relevant because we have to think about development, but at the same time to deal with the crisis, with the emergencies, with the most urgent dimensions of this crisis. So I don't know if there's the presentation, if someone has the presentation there. Let's see if I can share with you. Just hold on for a minute.
You can share, huh? You have there the arrow.
All right.
Yeah.
I will be there just in a second.
Minister, this is Andrew helping to organize. Do you want me to share the presentation?
Can you see the?
Now we can see. No problem, Gabriel.
All right. No, I just made a mistake. All right. Don't worry. I will go on with my speech. The first issue we are addressing with certain.
I think that the screen disappeared now. I don't know what was touched. But before we were seeing, but now we cannot see it. Huh?
Let's see now. Can you see it now?
And yes, now it's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. The first issue we are addressing in a very with very priority is the homelessness. We are. This is a problem that it's been growing in Buenos Aires that has like two main aspects. The first one, as I was telling you, is related with the economic crisis. But what we have studied and we have seen is that there are many cities who don't have this economic crisis, but still are addressing this same problem. So there is a very important economic aspect that we can't ignore, but as well, there are other dimensions that we have to take into consideration in order to address the homelessness. We made like different census every year, and 2024 has increased the amount of people living, homeless people, in like 30%. So we have like a very important problem here. And this is a problem that historically in Buenos Aires was only addressed in wintertime because of the weather conditions. So we are like trying to move the focus to an year thing, like the 3,065 days a year, and trying to address it, aiming not only those people who are actually homeless, but also the 3 million residents that we have in the city of Buenos Aires, because here we have like two problems that develop simultaneously. On the one hand, of course, the housing issue, and those people who live under very poor situations at the like some banks, some metro stations, and at the street, but also like the convivence of all the city. We are having an increased violent episodes regarding homeless people. Some of them when they suffer violence, some others when they like provoke violence. So we are developing a strategy that includes the 3 million of Buenos Aires people, and not only in the winter, although of course in winter we develop some special measures, but also every year, because as I was telling you, it is a priority of this new local administration. So we are like redesigning our street operation in order to reach people faster. We are like developing new operation centers, improving our data system, our monitoring center, and developing new protocols in order to approach certain specific population, like minors, like children that are at the streets, like or people with mental health issues. We are also developing new insertion centers in order to develop job opportunities, and with a very active participation of NGOs and churches, specifically on mentoring people. We have in Buenos Aires a very wide network of voluntaries and of churches and NGOs that are like very active, involved in this problem. So what we are like trying to achieve is to make a more coordinated policy in order to have the same aims and to work together, so that we as a government, we have like certain strength that we can put together with what the NGOs and churches can also assist. So in that combination, I think we can get better results. So in every insertion center, we have churches and NGOs mentoring every single person who is being treated there. We are also engaging the whole citizenship in this issue. We're having like meetings, monthly meetings with residents who can share information, insights, and that they can also learn about what we are doing. There is certain like tension between empathy and also the regards of, well, okay, how to improve the public space. So in those meetings we can like receive information, receive complaints, but also tell them what we are doing with people, with homeless people, which are the jobs opportunity, and which are the opportunities for the citizenship to get involved, to mentor certain people. So there's a very important dimension of our plan in involving all the citizenship in this in homelessness strategy, and also certain human interventions where there are many places still in the city of Buenos Aires that are like we name them like no places, where they are like they promote the space for homeless people to establish there. So we are like making some interventions, some gaming areas, so that we can change the configuration of those places. The second priority for us it's about addictions and mental health. And although we are working on prevention, treatment, and social reintegration, there are like two aspects that I want to mention about. On the one hand, in Argentina, there is no public conversation about drugs and about addictions. You can find it in every family, in every house, but there is not a symmetric answer in the government programs and in the public policy. So the first thing we realize is that this had to be like a main issue in our government, and we are developing a mass communication campaign, and we are begin to speak and make a conversation about this. And the second thing has to be with sports gambling. Every addiction program in Argentina was focused on, especially on drugs and alcohol. We are also start to speak about sport gambling because especially kids at schools and teenagers, we have noticed that this is a huge problem, and still there is no legislation, and what and the strategies we used to have are not enough, are not sufficient, and are not accurate to deal with this new kind of addiction.
Gabriel, sorry, Gabriel, we are a little bit out of time. If you just can start concluding, appreciate it.
Yes, sure. The third aspect has to be with family life. One of the things we have registered after the pandemic was that the community, the families have suffered with isolation, with mental health issues. So we are developing special programs of how to approach family, how to approach communities, and how to deal with those special effects about COVID and pandemics. And the last two aspects are food policy. We, as I was telling you, we are dealing with a special economic crisis, so we're expanding our food policy, and we are improving it. We are trying to get to directly to every people who is suffering from this crisis, especially with the new poors. We were like used to have a special approach to certain areas of the city who were historically in a poor situation. With this new crisis, we are trying to reach to every citizen who needs the government support. And the last dimension, of course, is employment. Although we have a very serious crisis, we are developing certain tools of training, intermediation, formalization, and how to integrate the public and the private sector in order to generate employment and to involve every dimension of the society into developing opportunity, economic opportunity for the most poor. So this is the very fast and with some language difficulties, what we are planning and we are developing in this new administration of the city of Buenos Aires government. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabriel. Very appreciate. I think that at this stage we are reaching to what really matters in the city of Buenos Aires, and we really appreciate this carefulness in terms of homeless, in terms of food security, financial independence. So we are really setting the scene, and give me the chance also to.
I'm sorry, I know we're running out. I just wanted to say, Minister, thank you very much for the time, for connecting with us. I mean, this has been very interesting for our team here in Argentina. And I just want to say, I haven't had a chance to introduce myself in person, but thank you. And everyone in this team is at your disposal. I very much look forward to keep working with you and with the government of Jorge Macri, with whom we already met.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Let me introduce now to Margarita Gutman, who is the head of research program and lecturer at the Faculty of Architecture and Urbanism from the University of Buenos Aires. Margarita holds a doctorate and is an architect from the university. She is professor of urban study, international affairs, and director of the Observatory on Latin America, OLA, at the New School in New York. She's also Profesora Consulta Pro Bono and member of the Doctoral Commission of the School of Architecture, Design and Urban Planning at the University of Buenos Aires. From 2004 to 2009, she has been full professor and holder of a chair of Cátedra of History and Architecture and Cities at the Faculty of Architecture of the University of Buenos Aires. She was as a scholar at the Getty Research Institute at the Woodrow Wilson International Center, fellow at the International Center for Advanced Studies of the New York University, and senior fellow at the Vera Lee Center for Art and Politics, the New School. Margarita, your turn.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, thank you for the invitation to participate in this panel. My comments today are based on my experience as an architect and historian of urban issues, focused mainly on Buenos Aires and addressing in recent years the expectations for the future of our inhabitants at the beginning of the 20th century and in the present. Sorry. Good. I will talk about three topics. First, the issue of expectations, asking if they are part of quality of life or could be. And second, whose expectations are we talking about? Second, I will talk about resonating expectations in Buenos Aires at the beginning of the 20th century, and specifically about the lay people's expectations. Finally, clicking on fast forward to 2015, I will discuss the challenge of visibility of plebeian expectations in the digital space. To get to this topic, I would dare to ask you, why and how did you come here today, or you are linked to this panel? Well, whatever the reason may be, whether it responds to a need, a desire, or an obligation of today, you had to resort to your memory to know at least how to get here. And you hope that will happen after this meeting. That is, you have some expectation for the future. This always happens at every moment of our lives, because the memories of the past, the needs of the present, and the expectations for the future are always part of our personal and collective life. Therefore, expectations are part of the city experience, and they influence our decisions because what we want for the future helps us today to decide about actions to be taken. For this reason, I would dare to say that the right to aspire, to express expectations for the future, its exercise and its recognition should be considered part of quality of life. Then the first question for this conversation is, who has the legitimacy to formulate some desire, idea, or plan for changes in the city? And not only to formulate, but also to be heard and to be taken into account. And with this question, I move on to the next point. I entered these issues of anticipations studying professional urban plans around 1910, the date of the centennial Argentina's main revolution for independence. I quickly confirmed what is well known, that voices of the population were missing from those lettered plans. The point is that, along with many other scholars, I understand that there is no successful plan fully implemented and sustained over time that ignores the voices, needs, expectations, desires, and knowledges of ordinary people. You see, here. To see if the letter plans have anything to do with expectations of lay people, I looked for some proxy. And I studied then the very new illustrated magazines, which have wide circulation and readership. They were cheap, easy to read on the tram, and they were read by all members of the family. They reflected urban life and also taught about how to live in the city. Of course, these magazines did not spread the voices of the common people, but rather what their editors thought their readers would like to read, and therefore to pay for them. And then we can think that what people read, saw, and enjoyed in those magazines was resonating with their interests and expectations, because for all the million inhabitants of Buenos Aires, both native and immigrants, the productive takeoff of Argentina and the unstoppable growth of Buenos Aires indicated that there was no doubt. The future was just around the corner. It was almost a tangible reality. Oh, the future was also news. And the magazines published all kinds of ideas, plans, caricatures, humorous cartoons, and all sorts of reflections of how they will live in the world to come. To round out this episode, I would like to say again that though the magazines did not spread the voices of common people, the plebeian voices, one can think that what they published resonated quite a bit with the desires and expectations of the population who consume weekly the enormous circulation of magazines, which far exceed those of the newspapers. Well, let's now click fast forward, and see if today digital technologies and the internet can help to make visible the expectations for the future of ordinary people. In this regard, I want to share with you an exercise related to the interactive cartographic representation of Google Maps and its applications, which can be considered one of the most used mapping platforms in the Western world, not only to navigate the city, but also in academic research and institutional functions. We all know that these interactive cartographies have replaced almost totally paper maps and have the authority given by the alleged neutrality and authority of science and technology, plus the monopolistic corporate power to impose their vision on the world. There is an eloquent phrase that says, no one maps what they do not want to control. Okay, let's go. Can you pass it? With a team of two architects, Jimena Pupo and Javier Nesprias, we started to work 8 years ago in the digital space. And we were in search of urban anticipations disseminated by ordinary people. We looked for articles, notes, or videos published by the lay people of local media or other local media, not the big media, with demands for change in vulnerable places. We then studied the emergence of demands for transformation triggered by situation of territorial and environmental vulnerability in 7 communes and 7 border municipalities between the city of Buenos Aires and the greater Buenos Aires. They were published between 2000 and 2015 by individuals, local media, and neighborhood associations in format of text and images and audio visuals. Well, with the idea, you have to help me. I don't know why. With the idea of getting to know better the places mentioned in the hundreds of results that we were finding in our speeches, we used Google Maps and the virtual walks of Google Street View, as everybody does. And very quickly, we noticed that most of our results had little to do with what was displayed on this platform. Many of those sites with problems posted online by ordinary people did not appear in the corporate digital maps at all, or they did so in a very partial way or with temporary imbalances. And this happens despite the fact that those platforms have the clear objective of surveying cities and the world at the level of a pixel. Well, we then kindly renown them as Google Street No View. Yeah. The fact is that without any notice, such as the well-known error 404, we came across in the digital space with not announced and not perceived gaps in the everyday use of these platforms, but the problems were quite evident in our intentional search for demands about places with territorial vulnerabilities. Well, which of course were receiving very few clicks, and for this reason, there is no interest by the corporation to make them visible. Yeah. To carry on this research, we developed a controlled search process, which we call Technosocial Explorer, ETS, about which I will not expand here, because the validation and description of the data set, the data used, can be seen in papers that we have published and will be available in a soon-to-be-published book. We identified 1,632 articles and videos uploaded between 2000 and 2015, which denounce and demand the transformation or improvement of places with vulnerabilities or at risk. We built a data set, the next one, please. We built a data set with metadata and analytic categories for each of the records. We visualize the data to interpret it, and we prepare graphics of analytic categories by administrative units. We then group the demands by problem of environmental and housing vulnerability and of risk due to corporate pressure on green and residential spaces. And finally, the 1,121 records that could be geo-referenced, we built an interactive digital cartography based on polygons, points, and lines. We identified fragments that concentrated most of the demands, and we overlapped the light blue mesh of the Google Street View on each of the 119 ETS polygons to evaluate its coverage. That is, the streets that can be seen through Google Street View. We established 6 degrees of coverage: null, almost null, partial low, partial high, almost complete, and complete, according to the percentage of the polygon covered by the light blue mesh. We then quantify it and saw that 82% of the polygons, 98 of over 119 that contain vulnerability or risk claims, are represented in an incomplete or null manner in Google's platform. That is to say that Google Street View does not show, or partially, the territories with great vulnerability and conflict exposed in the ETS. We built the ETS cartography composed of 4 pieces: a map of problems, one of vulnerability, another of risk, and finally the map of voids, which offers a joint geographic location of absences in the Google Street View application. As you can see here, most of the voids are found in the municipalities of the South and Southwest, while to a lesser extent, they are distributed in the southern communes 4 and 8 of the city of Buenos Aires. Most of them contain demands due to problems of an environmental and housing vulnerability. These findings are not new for urban and social studies of the metropolitan area of Buenos Aires, but it is very notable that they are not visited by Google Street View cars and carts. There are other areas not visited, such as some of large dimensions with demands for risk problems on green spaces due to corporate real estate pressure, like in the coast of Avellaneda and Quilmes and in the northern Vicente Lopez. There are also voids over the rivers and streams that allow us to think that perhaps the hydric condition is a specially ignored aspect of Google's corporate digital cartography. As a final synthesis, we can say that these voids in Google Street View are in fact full of vulnerability and risks. You can see here this mosaic with 98 images posted by ordinary people, which shows problems in each of the 98 places with null or incomplete coverage. Those images complete or contradict the published by Google Street View. For concluding, let me say that this work shows evident biases in the virtual walks of Google Street View, where a good part of the expectations for the transformation of vulnerable and at-risk places are invisible. With the rapid development of artificial intelligence, those biases are likely to become bigger because it is strange to think that digital markets mobilized by platform capitalism will be interested in visualizing sites and problems of poverty and vulnerability, which have almost no clicks. We do believe that there is a need to be visible in the digital corporate cartographies because they monopolize the representing of the city and they are becoming a true second nature of the city, its visual representation per excellence. We believe in the need to support the right to be visible in the digital corporate city, such as in Google's cartography, especially of those expectations expressed by the population with vulnerability, so that they can have one more window of opportunity to be visible, recognized, and taken into account. This condition directly affects theirs and also ours quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Margarita. I think that now we are really in the center of this webinar. Appreciate your presentation. I think that is really matching very much with Minister Gabriel was telling us in terms of how really local government can have a dialogue with local academia. And I think that this is exactly the purpose of the Quality of Life Initiative. So very appreciate. I just take the sentence, the right to be visible in the digital space must be part of the quality of life. And I think that for our colleagues in Nairobi and all around the world, it's a very strong message, and I appreciate that. Just moving forward, the third part is the panel discussion and dialogue. And we have 4 people, but four colleagues. Before going there, I really would like to encourage all participants that we have online and present here. If they want to say something or contribute or want to react, we really want to register all this. So if you can write, and our colleagues here in the audience want to intervene, please feel free. We invite you especially for that purpose. So, and you help me in terms if you have comments or something you want to.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Felita Viegas says, very interesting work, Professor Margarita. lots to learn from this study and how it can be implemented in another parts of the world.
Great. Yeah, that's nice that people are joining. We will be summarizing the comments and we will go back, but I don't want to take time from our colleagues. And let me introduce David Dotman. David Dotman is the General Director of the Institute for Housing and Urban Development Studies in Holland. It's called IHS. It's very well known globally. It's an education, advisory, and research institute at Erasmus University Rotterdam. David has worked on sustainable urban development research in the universities and research institute for the past 20 years. He's an experienced organizational leader with a strong focus on applied research and impact. He has been a coordinating lead author in the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, has played a leading role in international and collaborative research program, and has advised a wide range of government and international organizations. David's research interests focus on urban climate, change resilience, and informality. He has published extensively in policy reports, journal articles, and edited books. David, the floor is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon, and thank you for that very kind introduction. Wendy, I can see you on the screen. Can you give me a thumbs up if I'm being heard well? Thank you very much. I'll keep my comments brief because I know we have limited time and it's good to get different kinds of inputs. Since I've become involved in the Quality of Life initiative, it's been very provocative for me as a researcher who's very much interested in things like poverty, informality, and risk from disasters and climate change. Interested in how we meet the basic needs for the 1 billion people in cities around the world who live in so-called slums, where they need water, energy to keep themselves alive, food, where they need education, healthcare, and livelihoods to be productive members of society. And this has provoked me to think what we mean by the purpose of quality of life is in these settings. So to try and build on a couple of the comments before and to add something to the discussion, I'd like to suggest 3 things beginning with P, which might be helpful. The first is the philosophical importance of the concept of quality of life. I think that bearing quality of life in mind really helps to hold us to account as analysts, academics, and practitioners about the things that are really meaningful, about valuing human life and human experience beyond either mere existence or simplifying people, citizens, simply as economic assets or servants of the economy. So the philosophical utility, I think, would be my first P to bear in mind. The second, which I think links very nicely with some of the things that Margarita Gutmann has just been saying, is I think it is practically useful. That the concept of quality of life can help to inform the ways in which we deliver services and can push for improvements in the delivery of services. And so we heard the examples from the minister around homelessness and addiction. We heard the examples from Margarita Gutmann about people and places being invisible. I'll give a separate example around the provision of water, including to low-income and underserved communities. So if we're thinking about the provision of water, we can just use basic quantitative measures, and these have been used to track progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. But the measures that we use are often simplifications that don't adequately capture what these mean for the quality of people's lives. So for the SDG on improved water sources, the main definition is simply that this water is not contaminated with fecal matter. And of course, there are many more things that matter to people's quality of life than simply having water that is not contaminated with fecal matter. And it's even recognized by the people who use these measures that this in itself is a long way short of being safe water sources. But we have got initiatives, and even among the people who track provision towards water and sanitation goals, that there's a big shift from provider-based data to user-based data. And a concept like quality of life can help us to move towards thinking about user-based data as an improved measure for meeting some of these very practical goals, and help us to extend the definitions of what is necessary and what is appropriate. So that's the second P, practically useful. The third P, though, I think, is that it's still a politically challenging concept. And I'm a little wary of the idea of quality of life if it is only about keeping people happy or satisfied with their position. It's not about, it shouldn't be about imposing an external or expert-driven agenda on what quality of life looks like. And when I was thinking about this, I actually wrote down that we need to have it going hand in hand with a focus on rights. And Margarita Gutmann's presentation put rights as being central here as well, the right to be heard and the right to be visible. And so I would say then, if I'm making a provocation with my third P, that it's politically challenging, and that as we think of quality of life, we also need to draw very much on the experiences that we know from co-producing services and co-production of urban space, to get insights from the people themselves who are most affected, to identify what their own key quality of life issues are and how these can be best achieved. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, David. Really appreciate the 3P, another takeaway from this meeting. I will give the chance to Lara Kinnear to also talk. She's a designer and associate professor from the London Interdisciplinary School. Lara is a designer and associate professor in the United Kingdom, where its teaching and practice focuses on creating new interdisciplinary evidence base to demonstrate the impact that well-designed space can have on social, economic, environmental, and cultural well-being. Alongside the London Institute, she's director of the lab, a space for experimentation, analysis, and delivery of innovative learning and industry initiative at the London School of Architecture, founder at the Keen and Transdisciplinary Rapid Application Design Studio, and co-founder of Collaborative Change, an open access platform to gather, celebrate, and investigate collaborative working that demonstrate and deliver innovation and social impact. Trained in architecture and spatial design, she has worked in academia, city regeneration, government policy, design studios, think tanks, and global organizations that are focused on the bettering of people and planetary life. She collaborates with a range of organizations from grassroots to government, bringing design to places where it is lacking yet holds the potential to be transformed. Lara, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Fernando, and to the other presenters that have shared a lot of content already. I really like David's piece, so I'm actually going to continue that because it fits nicely with my reflections. So I would like to reflect on the aspect of process and practice. And I'm saying this in the context of, as Fernando just went through in a bit of detail, I'm an architect by training. I've worked in city government. I've worked in academia where I continue now, and I've practiced. And so I'm really speaking across those perspectives. And one of the critical reflections that we had as an academic group in creating the position paper of the Quality of Life Initiative, and in reflection to what people presented today, is that we all know that measures alone won't change the world, especially when they're created without the consideration of how they get applied. So what I'm really interested in is how our words can be chosen in parallel to the people and processes that will implement them. In other words, how do we take into consideration the translation that is required to take all our aspirations and make sure they get delivered in our streets, in our homes, in our parks? And this is what really excites me about the development process that the Quality of Life Initiative is working on and is working through at the minute, where they're considering what quality of life is, how they can measure it, where the data is going to come from to substantiate those measures, how they can then test that in different contexts. And colleagues from Buenos Aires, you've really shared a few insights into how you're trying to test and conceive of this. And then how do we ensure that that becomes something that is greater than the sum of its parts? And we know that this is not without challenge, but it's essential for ensuring that our words become effective actions and they work coherently as well as specifically. So what we're really talking about is a new mindset that we apply to all the decisions that we try and make about our future world. In some ways, you could think about some of the examples that have been shared today, and with the Quality of Life Initiative, it's almost like creating a new recipe book where we have some common ingredients that are palatable for all, but then we also have some very specific ingredients that are then pleasing for the different contexts that they manifest in. So in many ways, it's like a convening mechanism, whether we have the Quality of Life Initiative and how that manifests. It really does convene so many different structures to try and look at it as a whole. And just in terms of process, one of the interesting manifestations we have here in the UK is something called the Future Generations Bill, which aims to put long-term strategic thinking at the heart of UK policy making to protect the well-being of people and communities now and in the future. So it's really bringing that long-term approach to decision-making today. And it sets out a few steps for all public bodies in the UK in order to achieve this, which I thought might be useful to reflect quickly. One, it requires public bodies to set and publish well-being objectives, which is another word for quality of life. It wants to publish a future generations impact assessment. So it's always thinking about how to measure it. And it also, and I think most interestingly, wants to create a way of accounting for preventative spending. So that's requiring public bodies to think about their economic model and to annually publish a report that details the proportion and total amount of preventative spending. Lastly, the final component that it requests is that it makes a provision for a future generations commissioner. So in effect, a champion that keeps the intent alive when the thought, the difficult decisions are presented. So that's on process and how important I think that is in the context. The second P is practice. And of course, I'm going to then focus on space, because that is the manifestation of so much of what we've talked about. And I'm particularly interested in the spatial conditions that can support, sustain, and catalyze quality of life. And I'm excited to investigate how the Quality of Life Initiative, with the new lens that it can provide, can help us to transform the planning and delivery of the places where our lives play out. So let's look at a few quick examples, and I know time is short, but just imagine intergenerational services. What do I mean by that? Well, imagine we have shared kitchens that bring together primary schools and housing for older people, and services that can provide for not just one offering, but provide for many. Or think about housing that is more than just housing that can support quality of life alongside environmental requirements and economic conditions, where our sense of security in our homes and our aesthetic conditions are not seen as optional elements, or that something that will cost more, but are actually integral to quality of life alongside environmental and economic conditions. Or think of public transport systems that are more than just infrastructure that get you from A to B, but actually provide meeting spaces that are beautiful, cultural spaces, artwork, something that's more than just a train or a platform. And so I wonder if just our thinking through the Quality of Life Initiative can enable us to see spaces in a very different way that is multidimensional, that will work much harder to deliver a quality of life, no matter the context. And I'll stop there because I know there's others to add to the conversation.
Thank you very much, Lara. I think that is very appreciated, and as you mentioned, is very aligned with what David was mentioning in this change from provider user data to the user. And you bring us the issue of design and the site and the importance of really site allocated intervention. So really appreciate. And also I think that in the room here, we will continue talking about this future generation bill that really for Buenos Aires can be a great opportunity to also apply. So let me introduce now to Debolina Kundu. She's the director of National Institute of Urban Affairs, has over 25 years of professional experience in the field of development studies. Presently, she's the director in India, and a think tank under the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. She has worked as a consultant with several organizations, and also the Urban Institute in Washington and East-West Center in Honolulu on issues of urbanization, migration, urban development policies, municipal finance, social protection, governance, and exclusion. So, Debolina, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Fernando and my colleagues from the UN Habitat for this opportunity. And I also congratulate the team for taking up this important initiative on quality of life and to look at it from the lens of human interventions, local governments, and also academia. I think several P's have already been discussed, but my focus is also on P, people, and a subset within the people, the poor, right? So the people who are deprived, living in the slums, with little access to the basic amenities, and we always have we and they, like in countries of the global south, where there's a lot of informality. We try to say that they need to serve, but they are not part of us. So I think blurring that divide is very important. And when we are talking about quality of life, it should be a holistic view of encompassing the entire population so that the last person connectivity, again, P comes, is there. And to these, we also need to think about the data, which has already been discussed, because until and unless we have the information, the correct information, the real-time data on where people are, in what levels of poverty, I think that becomes a very important pillar. And with increasing urbanization, because we know urbanization is inevitable, technological progress, existing, the climate crisis, the conflicts which we are all aware of in various countries, and the existence of digital divide, again in the cities of the third world, the global, sorry to use that term, the global south. I think it is important to place the priorities of the people at first, and which has been rightly recognized by this initiative. I think the principle of innovation is also important in aligning with the SDGs, and it would be of essence for the local governments, not only the national government, the local governments at the neighborhood level, because we find a lot of disparities within cities. So when we talk about quality of life, it should not be just for people like you and me who does have access to resources, but to think about people who really need focused attention of the government at all levels. And I think whatever initiatives have been taken or are being taken in Buenos Aires, that's very important. And I will not go into the detail. I think we already have heard the presentations, but thinking about the homeless, the people living in slums, those who are deprived, I think bringing them, talking about them, having some policy focus for them is very important. And I look forward to this initiative getting global recognition, just like we talk about SDGs. I think most countries where there is still a high share of poor and slum population. I think this initiative is of primary essence there. Thank you so much. I stop here in the essence of time.
Thank you, Debolina. Very important remarks in terms of the role of local governments and the SDGs as a proxy to approach holistic global policies, and also bringing the P of the poor on slums. This is very important. I think that the minister later we have a lot of questions on the same issue. We will give him chance to react or to comment. Just to conclude, I will give the chance to Wendy Porcel, who is a professor and vice chair education from Rutgers University and Harvard University. Dr. Wendy is a PhD and is a full professor and vice chair education with Rutgers Health, joining the university in fall of 22 from the Harvard Chan School of Public Health, where she was an academic research scholar, and continue as a research scientist with the Harvard Shine Human Flourishing Program. Wendy is a visiting professor with University College London, Global Business School for Health, and chairs the Environmental Association of Universities and College Sustainability Leadership Change Academy at the University of Cambridge. Wendy is a emeritus professor of biomedicine and was president of the United Kingdom University, leading the university to be among the top 1% of world universities and first green United Nations University. Green United Kingdom University. She was awarded the Queen Anniversary Medal for Excellence in Higher Education. Wendy, welcome.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Well, this is fascinating. Thank you so much for the invitation to be part of this really important dialogue. I have 3 reflections, and there are some P's in there just to keep the theme running. So my first reflection is that quality of life is both an end in itself and an organizing principle. And so by this, I mean it can be both a destination and a journey. I don't see it as a narrow definition or something that's just restricted to compensating people who are living in difficult circumstances. I see it as an expansive proposition that relates to helping people live their best lives, that helps guide government and policies to what really matters to people and helping us realize human potential. I think when we look at the SDGs, the ultimate sort of transformative deliverable of the SDGs is the creation of a world that leaves no one behind. And it does envisage a world where everyone can enjoy quality of life. And I think this relates to the external factors. We've heard about some of those, like access to clean water and air and nutritious food and health and education, as well as some of those kind of systems level matters such as peace and justice and equity. And it does extend to the livability of place and economic inclusion. But quality of life brings in some other aspects of what makes us truly human, things like joy and self-actualization and flourishing. And I think in this way, quality of life as a construct takes the Sustainable Development Agenda forward for humanity. So I'm interested in exploring how might our thinking change, our priorities adapt, and our attention be guided to what really matters when we adopt quality of life as a lens. What will we see afresh, anew, in a different light? How will quality of life influence our perception, our comprehension, and our actions towards sustainable progress? And so here we're exploring quality of life with the city as the microcosm of progress on global policy agendas such as the SDGs. We're working across scales from the individual to the neighborhood and community, quality of life that's connecting the local development with global growth that's more sustainable. My second reflection is that quality of life goes beyond simple concepts of a good life, and it really gets to the heart of the lived experience of people in urban areas. And it can be a key driver of human progress that can help us prioritize actions on those interventions that will bend the arc towards a fairer society. And I think in this way, both the individual and collective needs of people are placed at the front and center of shaping local solutions that accelerate progress on the global goals. So using quality of life as an overarching principle, supported by local level measures that enjoy high face validity, offers us a construct or a framework that's both meaningful and quantifiable. And there's something about the simplicity of the pursuit of quality of life that belies its inherent complexity and flexibility. So I think it allows for us to have both a general understanding as well as individual meaning, and it enables us to adopt this universal construct, but we can tailor it to the local needs of people. And then my final reflection is that there's something intuitive about quality of life that the SDGs just do not capture to the same degree. So when we look at the position paper that we put together, we highlighted these 4 recommendations where local and national governments can accelerate the pursuit of sustainable development. Now, Raphael went into detail here. So very briefly, these 4 recommendations that they use and we use the quality of life, this concept, to guide and prioritize our actions to advance the overall well-being of people. And I see this already, it's happening in Buenos Aires, and we heard that described by Minister Gabriel. The second recommendation was that cities integrate quality of life measures that reflect the importance of relationships and belonging, as well as access to infrastructure. And I think this is a real opportunity for Buenos Aires going forward, and Professor Margarita inferred that, I think, in her excellent comments earlier. And our third recommendation was that there were participatory mechanisms that were used to produce data that identified the needs of vulnerable groups and develop action to advance local and global development. And this already appears firmly established in the work that's ongoing in Buenos Aires. And the final recommendation is that an index on quality of life is used to inform policy design that responds to the needs and the desires of communities. And I think that Buenos Aires can really help lead our global thinking here in shaping such an index. So Buenos Aires and its wider metropolitan area, I think, are making incredible progress. We heard that, exciting plans ahead. And I think we're seeing here a shift from a focus that's largely about infrastructure to the actuality of people's lived experience, a more holistic approach, I think, as Laura said too, that we focus then on the quality of life. And then we look at the city as this kind of global learning lab for quality of life in urban areas. And I think Buenos Aires can really be part of that global learning lab. So thank you so much for your time, and I'll hand right back to you.
Thank you very much, Wendy. I think that is great that you remind us that there are a position paper on quality of life that is available and everyone can read. And also the recommendation in terms of simplicity, very important too. And the general understanding and the individual meaning is also excellent. And we can see David there holding the portrait. Yeah, thank you very much. I think that just finalizing, we want to give chance to the question. We receive a lot of questions. We were trying to summarize, but basically the questions are, I will split in 2. Those that are locals, that are particularly for the ministry, that are asking how can citizenship help to reduce the homelessness crisis or this is something that only government can do? This is a very local question. And we have a lot of global questions regarding, like, for instance, for Professor Dotman, the access to secure water should be a right. How we can achieve it when the water sources are being contaminated by the mining and other extractive activities. This is local too, but it's quite global. And Rami, who referred to how different factors of quality of life can be measured and tackled in different parts of the world when people priorities can change based on local challenges. We will order in this way. We will give chance to some of the minister people that are present here if they want to react to these general questions, and later we'll give chance to Professor Dotman or some of the other colleagues who can reply.
Sí, estoy viendo. ¿Qué tal? Perdón. Victoria Kaiser, del Instituto de Vivienda y Ministerio. No sé si puede repetir, por favor, la pregunta que estaba viendo ahí, porque querían responderla desde el ministerio mismo ahí, pero no me están tratando de conectarse de vuelta, así que, perdón.
No, it's asking if the citizenship can help to reduce homelessness, or is something that is a responsibility of the government. That is the question.
So, I'm sorry, I'm gonna, of course, speak in English. Of course, the citizenship always can help in various ways. But the main responsibility, of course, is the government to secure housing, to secure a good quality of life. And of course, as we have been speaking here, and all the panelists have commented, quality of life means something different for everyone. But the basics, the housing for the people to be able to develop the whole potential, it's has to be secured by the government. So that's a policy that we're trying to just carry out. Of course, the citizenship always can help with that. Participation and democratic government is very key. Because we all want a good quality of life, and that means, like I said, something different for everyone. So we all want a better city, a more a more quality city, qualified city. So that's just government and citizenship together. So that's why it's important to hear every commune here in Buenos Aires, every specific situation, because every commune here and every neighborhood is very different, and the topology of those neighborhoods are very different. So there are very different situations that we have to take into account, and togetherness is very important here to just try to hear everyone and try to reach a consensus on how to approach a policy in this matter.
Thank you very much. So, Professor Dotman, I repeat the question for you, that this is a global one, that is, the access to secure water should be a right. How can we achieve it when the water sources are being contaminated by the mining and other extractive activities?
I mean, these are huge questions to do with global resource allocations and global sustainable development. So just try and give a little bit of an angle of why maybe a consideration of quality of life might be helpful here. I would say that if we view the rights to water through some of the lenses that Professor Margarita also spoke about, then we start asking fundamental questions about who has the right not only to access water, but also who has the right to contaminate and use water for industrial purposes, or who has the right to pollute through agriculture, mining, or other activities. So I mean there is no straightforward answer, obviously. But if we start thinking of the quality of life as the outcome, then it also prompts us to think about how we view these different elements of water usage, how we view though not only the contamination, but also the allocation of resources to store, treat, distribute water within urban settings. And I would say, you know, we're all very familiar if we work in urban settings, that we know the huge discrepancies in the amounts of water that are used between wealthy and less wealthy groups. And so we have to then ask questions about the distribution of the water that is suitable. So yes, there is an issue of the contamination, the quality of water, but there are even bigger issues, I think, around issues of the treatment and distribution of water and how this becomes available to different groups, particularly in cities, if that's what we're talking about here.
Thank you, David. A question for the Bolina that is saying, if maybe better to have a regional climate region based on minimum quality of life standards. Such an approach considers the climate change risk factor and opportunities of built environments, and if India is doing something like that.
Sorry, could you kindly repeat the question? There was a power failure.
Yeah, if you may recommend to have a regional climate region based minimum quality of life standards.
Yes, because India is the country of diversity and there are regional disparities, as well as the disparities are induced by climate as well. So I think it would be important to have a regional perspective, and the government of India as of now is thinking of devising strategies which are not rural urban based, but more inclusive, more integrated, taking into consideration both rural and urban, and having a more regional perspective, which was not there earlier. I think that this initiative is already there, being discussed at the Prime Minister's office. And also we are having the brainstorming sessions called, which we call the Chintan Shivers, where this perspective would be discussed in details during this month. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A question for Lara. Someone is asking this literacy of places, how we can move forward from words to action. What do you recommend?
Sorry, the beginning bit, words to action I got, but the first bit that you said?
We're talking about literacy of places in terms of how places are really framing the political agenda in terms of quality of life.
Okay, yeah, complicated context, but trying to answer it as best I can. I think, firstly, a bit like what Wendy said at the end, none of this is static. None of this is, we should never see any sort of quality of life measure as a permanent thing. If we really want the Quality of Life Initiative and any other measures that we're using to determine what good is, they need to be fluid. They need to be reactionary to how society is changing. And I think places are exactly the same. What works for a well-designed park that includes climate mitigation design and creates places for kids as much as older people to convene in will look different today as it did 20 years ago and as it will in 20 years' time. So it's again going back to this idea of the lens, like how do we look towards making decisions that are as effective as possible for today, but also being mindful of the future. And the dimension that we touched on in different ways was this issue of time. It's a really challenging one because it's hard within political time cycles, within financial time cycles. So again, it's about how we can convene together through the most optimum structure that allows us to determine what good is and how that can manifest across a variety of different timescales and different people involved.
Thank you, Lara. And last question for Wendy. Someone is asking how different factors of quality of life can be measured and tackled in different parts of the world when people's priorities can change based on the local challenges.
Thank you. I love that question because I think it goes right to the heart of why I think quality of life can be this organizing principle, because I think that we can arrive at a kind of universal understanding. But I think the question points us then to how do we then take that kind of shared understanding and actually deliver against local priorities as described, understood and lived locally. And I think that's what's really coming through. It came through absolutely in the minister's comments. It came through also in the sense of the visibility or otherwise of in our digital kind of understanding around maps that we heard from the professor. So the thing that I think is very appealing is that the quality of life framework shifts us from, I think, as David opened up, that de minimis position of absence of fecal into a position where we are creating aspiration. And that aspiration is situated in the local. So the context of the local is really driving the progress towards quality of life as understood and contextualized locally. And I think as we've seen in Buenos Aires, that can only happen when there's dialogue among groups and there is a real honoring of the co-creation with people. Now, whether that's people in vulnerable populations such as the homeless, whether it's people in other spaces, I think that's the focus, is that local driver, but within that universal architecture that we're building collectively through these kinds of conversations. So great question. And I think that really points us to the heart of the matter.
Thank you very much, Wendy. I think that you touch a very core issues in terms of the visualization and the identity of people who are vulnerable and are part of this discussion, and we appreciate that comment. Thank you very much. I think that we are closing to the end. We will continue, as I mentioned, locally, but for now, I think that I will give a chance to the organizers to say I would like to invite Rafael or Nora to give the closing of, because we'll continue locally. Rafael, are you available?
Of course I am. Of course I am. Thank you. I was absorbed by all the discussion. I think I want to thank our speakers. I really loved the notion of organizing principle for local action. I think you and Laura and David have underlined the fact that quality of life is not something that we can put into a box. So thank you so much for highlighting that and confirming us that this is the right way to go about it. It also opens so many conversations, right? It really confirms also why we are putting the emphasis on consultations and engaging with a broad range of stakeholders, because there's so many realities that needs to be understood and captured. So that really confirms also this element. And I mean, I will not repeat what has been said. I think it was a fantastic format where we heard so much about Argentina and Buenos Aires, and I really want to thank the mobilization of Fernando and all the stakeholders on your side. It really also confirms us that there is so much to discuss about using this lens of quality of life to make more progress and accelerate the SDGs. So I really thank you so much for your mobilization and support. And that inspires us moving forward for bigger discussions that will happen in the coming month and culminating at the World Urban Forum in in November, and in so many other fora before that. So thank you so much for the support. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, particularly the speaker, but also the people attending. We will locally develop a document that we will circulate with the conclusion that we'll have after this meeting. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you, and have a great day or evening. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.